Tonight, we are going to have Jim Stickley, and he is actually a well-known businessman, and believe it or not, a previous bank robber. I know, kind of a weird thing to say. I know, don't give me the face, Jim. Um, Jim and I have worked together in the past and continue to do so. So, I know a few things about Mr. Jim. He has had a colorful start, but he's turned it into a really great career. I mean, how many people do you know that, have turned around like hacking into different companies and so forth, and then turning it into a business where you hack in on purpose so that you can show them where maybe their vulnerabilities are. So it's actually really smart, which is fantastic, and why we have invited you here this evening. So, we utilize Jim and his group for cybersecurity education for our members and also, or sorry, for our employees. And we thought it would be a really great idea to go ahead and offer this up for our members as well, because we know that cybersecurity is, I mean, it's in the news all the time. And it's something that we're all concerned about. And, what do you believe? What do you know is something that you can do to protect yourself? What are the things that you can do to, be mindful of that could be a bad thing, right? So anyway, listen, Jim, he has been out there on the TV circuit. He's on radio. He's been on many shows. I mean, the Today Show, Good Morning America. I know I'm not going to build up your head. It's all good. But the point is that he's well known. He is an expert in the field, and that's why we have hired him to come on and help us all out. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to learn how to keep ourselves safe and know what to look for concerning fraudsters. So thanks for being here, Jim. And I'm going to turn it over to you to give a howdy do to everybody.
Thanks for that very unique introduction. How's everybody doing? Just to clarify, I am not a criminal. Well, I've spent my whole career, robbing whatever people wanted me to steal or breaking into banks or anything else. I was always being paid to do it. I mean, when I was young, I was, I had some fun, but I never got arrested, never went to jail, nothing like that. So just to clarify.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's always good. Well, that's excellent, and I do appreciate it. Now, I did put a little note in the chat. Just wanted to let everybody know that the way that this is set up tonight is that Jim and I have quite a few questions that we feel are very common and on topic and relevant questions that we feel would be some really good things for us to chat about. So that being said, please grab a piece of paper and a pen, write down things that you want to remember. I am recording this, so that way, if you need to look back on it and go, what did he say about that? Then, you'll be able to do that. But I just wanted to let you know that. So, Jim, thanks again so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So this is my first time being a moderator, so bear with me. And so let's start off with the first easy question here, right? So what is the most common way for scammers to contact their victims? Phone, email, text? What do you think?
Oh, it's by far email. I mean, everybody hopefully by now has heard of phishing, and that is by far the most common way that people are getting targeted right now.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I just made you big, didn't I?
I don't know. I just saw something changed on the screen. I apologize if everybody's having to look at this giant head of mine. So thanks.
It's all good. It's all good. Full of those wonderful brains that we want to pick on tonight. So it's all good. So, obviously emailing, right? So you're talking phishing, right? Yeah. So, have you seen changes in the phishing scams? Can you give a quick explanation first of what is phishing, so maybe people don't know what that means?
Sure. Hopefully by now you've heard of phishing. I mean, it's been around forever. I imagine you've at least heard it in some level. It's basically where criminals will send you an email. It'll look somehow legitimate, either like it comes from an organization you do business with or from a coworker, a loved one, friend, things like that. And their goal is to try to get you to click on a link, open an attachment, call a phone number, do something so that you'll ultimately give up personal information. And so when it comes right now, I mean, phishing evolves constantly. For those people who have been around a while that doing any kind of emailing, you'll remember like old school emails would be the ones that would come in and they'd have like broken English and they would just be almost silly. And you'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's fake. And then they've gotten better and better through the years. And now, I mean, they look real. There's very little to look at to know the difference. And they're constantly trying to figure out ways to adapt to make sure you're going to be likely to click. I mean, right now, a really good example is SVG. It's a type of image. And people have this idea when they receive an email and it has a picture attached to it that somehow pictures are safe. And I don't know why that is. I guess it's just because you think, well, it's not an executable. It's not something that's going to run on my computer. It's just a picture. And criminals that have realized you can embed a lot of really bad stuff. And SVG is one they're being targeted with a lot right now. And so they'll send out something that'll be an email that'll have an attachment and it'll be like an invoice. So you'll receive an invoice with this image that's supposed to be of the invoice. And so when you get it telling you you're owed, that you owe somebody money, you go, oh man, I don't owe anybody money. And sometimes they'll make it look like a real organization. Sometimes it'll be some random name. So you'll click on the little image to see, well, what is this invoice for? And that's when they get you. The minute that you open that image, malware is installing on your computer, and you won't know it. It'll look like an actual invoice. Everything will seem very normal to you, but in reality, your computer will be being compromised behind the scenes. So they're really good at adapting and changing how they're sending out these emails and new ways to trip people up. So just when you think you've kind of got your finger on the pulse, they'll switch it up and do something new that gets you to fall victim.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said about smart criminals. They're evolving all the time.
And you got to remember, it's not like, so people always go, well, if they're so smart, why aren't they getting jobs and, making lots of money doing this for good or whatever? And you got to remember, most of these scammers are in other countries. They're in like third world countries where they're lucky if they can make a few bucks in a week or a month. And so for them, this is their job. This is how they make their money because they aren't going to make it any other way there. And so if they're really brilliant, this is what they do. They go out and they start scamming people and making money because they can. If they couldn't, then they just have no money.
Yeah. It's kind of scary, though, that they're put into that position. That's really unfortunate.
It really is.
Yeah. So just to clarify, right? So I'm familiar with what malware is, but just to make sure everybody else is, just the basic, definition of what is malware.
Sure. So malware is software. It's a code that ends up on your computer that can do malicious things. So a lot of times you hear about things like ransomware. And ransomware is a type of malware that ends up on your computer or other devices, and it locks you out of files or things or systems, depending on what it's designed to do. So if ransomware ends up on a normal average person, it might lock you out of every picture you have, every document you have, every PowerPoint, every Excel sheet. And their hope is that you'll pay somebody this ransom in order to get access to those files again. In other cases, it's malware that's designed to monitor what you do. Sometimes it'll monitor all of your emails and read every email that you have, or it'll watch everything on your screen, or it'll turn on your camera and watch you in your home. It depends. But malware, the whole concept is it's software that's malicious that ends up on your computer or on your phone or other device.
Right. So one of the things that I know that that I've seen as well, and also in our trainings, is that there's a lot of fake websites like Amazon, Netflix, Walmart, that kind of thing. How do you know if it's legit or if it is not the right website?
Well, I mean, to just look at it would be almost impossible. So you've got to look for you got to avoid the thing. So Amazon's a great example. So my father-in-law fell for this one. He received an email, looked like it came from Amazon. And I mean, like he forwarded me the email. I mean, it's got the little logo on it. I mean, it looks like Amazon. And it was a receipt from Amazon. So it said that he had just made a purchase and it was for a television set. And so he gets this thing telling him that he just made a purchase, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I didn't buy a TV. Clearly, somebody else has hacked my account." In the email, it had an 800 number that you could call for service. So he sees
Mm-hmm.
the email, sees that he bought this TV, freaks out, calls the 800 number that's on the email. They answer on behalf of Amazon, and he starts talking to them, and they go, "Oh, let's look it up." They make clicky sounds like they're looking things up. And they're like, "Oh my goodness, we see that you have had somebody compromise your account, and we're going to go ahead and work with you." Well, then while they're talking to him to take this fee off of his charge so he won't get charged for it, they're also
Mm-hmm.
kind of befriending him and asking him stuff about himself and asking about what he does and trying to like basically get his defenses down because it's an Amazon employee. Just have a nice day
Right.
talking to him. And then as
Yeah.
they're talking, they go, by the way, right now we're working with the FBI because we're trying to take down these exact fraudsters that did this to you. They've done it to a number of other people. And he's like, "Oh, wow." And they go, "If you wanted, you could help us with this investigation." And of course, he wants to help. He wants to take down the
Of
bad guy. So he
course.
goes, "Absolutely, I'm in." And they go, "Okay, great. So what we need you to do is we need you to go to the grocery store because we're going to have you
Yeah.
buy a gift card. And what we're going to do is we're going to have you buy this gift card, and then we're going to use this in a sting operation that we're going to do to bust the bad guys. And of course, we're going to reimburse you for this gift card and everything else, and even pay you for some of your time." No, my father-in-law, he's a very smart man. He was a stockbroker, made a killing in the stock market. And
Yeah.
you would think he would just go, "That's ridiculous." But he didn't. He was so believing this conversation. He bought in. He didn't just go to one grocery store. He went to numerous grocery stores around town buying gift cards for 2 days and gave them
Oh,
every
my.
gift card number over those next 2 days so that they could catch the bad guys. And the only reason he stopped is because his wife was very suspicious of what was going on, called up my
Right.
wife and said, "Can you please have your husband call Tom? This seems really, really off." So I called
Yeah.
Tom. I started talking to him, and he says, and I go, "What's going on, Tom?" And as he's explaining it to me, he's
Mm-hmm.
realizing for the first
Right.
time just how
Right.
ludicrous this is. And he literally stops and goes, "Oh my God, I'm being scammed." And I go, "Yes, you are, Tom."
Yes,
So
you are. Oh,
criminals
gosh.
are that good and they're that convincing that once they've got you on and they're talking to you, you just buy into it. And everybody assumes they'll know what a criminal sounds like. They're going to have an accent or they're
Right.
going to seem like they're from another country or whatever it is. You just don't know. It could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be any type of accent. You just don't know who you're going to get.
Right. That's scary. And of course, we hear about it all the time about, how these folks will take advantage of those that are, let's just say, a little bit older.
Yeah.
But I've also heard that that's also true for younger people as well. Is that true?
Absolutely. In fact, there's studies that have come out relatively recently that are showing that teens and college students are actually even more vulnerable than senior citizens. And it's because teens and college students have grown up with digital their whole lives. So to
Right.
them, it's just part of who they are. And they don't
Right.
think for a minute like that they're vulnerable to anything because they know the technology so well, they don't have to worry. And
Right.
they're just blasé about everything. And so, yeah, criminals have really started targeting them, especially the teenage side and the college, because they have new credit and they can go after that credit where they haven't got bad credit yet, and they can start using their identities to just go and wreak havoc.
Right. That's scary, especially for younger people, because you don't want them to start off on their world in that kind of way. So,
Yeah,
hey,
it's
so
trying to make sure they know. Like if you have family members like kids or teenagers or whatever, just talk to them because and they're going to go, "Of course I know this. Of course I know this." Get past the "of course I know" and go, "Okay, I'm glad you do. Let me just give you a couple scenarios and make sure they understand that that social security number is that's their like one holy grail thing that, hey, look,
right.
if people ask you for things, okay, you might be dumb, you might give up a lot of stuff. When they ask for your social security number, hang up the phone. Like that is your like tell stop right there. And at least if you can at least teach them that one tip, they'll be better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that very much. So I know that email is kind of the number one thing. So you and I were discussing just recently about, how there was a scam where criminals were sending 2 emails. Can you explain that one?
Yeah, this is really ingenious, and they're having a ton of success with this. So you're sitting at home and you get an email, and it'll come from either a legitimate company or a company that sounds legitimate, like a name that's similar to a name you've probably heard before. And again, it'll be some sort of the first message is, hey, we're letting you know we've detected a new login on your account from an unknown source. And you get those from time to time on Amazon or Microsoft or Google,
Mm-hmm.
where they'll send you an IP address and say, is this you, kind of thing. Well, you get this in an email, but you go, I don't even recognize that company. I'm not sure who that is, or I don't think I have an account with them. So you kind of ignore the first one. And so you go, that's garbage. And then after about 5 minutes, you get another email from that same company. And this time it's an invoice. And it's an invoice for a purchase that you just recently made. And it says it's a credit card purchase. And you look at that and you go, huh, okay, I know that during maybe Christmas, I bought some gifts online. Maybe I did buy from that company. And people start rationalizing their head because they got
Mm-hmm.
that second follow-up email. This must be legitimate. And then, of course, there's some sort of a link in there where, to the website, and you can dispute it. So you go to the website and you try to log in. And of course, when you log in, you don't know what your account is. And in those cases, they're either trying to get you to click a link, open an attachment. Sometimes they'll take you to the website, and their goal is to try to get you to enter in a login and password, because they know that most people use the same password on everything, and most logins are your email address. So you go to the website, you type in your email address, you type in the password you use everywhere else. They just record that, and immediately they go out to every other major website and try to log in with your account. So
Yeah.
it's that second follow-up email that seems to trip people up and somehow legitimizes that it's not phishing anymore. So just be aware, if you get the first email and it says, hey, we see suspicious activity on your account, and you get a second follow-up and you don't know what the company is, start doing your own research about that company. See if it's even real. If it's real, go to their legitimate website, contact support that way. Don't just click links, don't open attachments, that type of thing.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, I think I may have fallen for something like that and then had to I had to cut off my credit card and that kind of thing. So, but anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's the thing. And this is actually, you saying that is a great example. Like, oftentimes people go, oh, I can't believe I fell victim. I feel like such an idiot. And you go, it's not that. Anybody, if they get you at that right moment at the right time, can fall victim to
mhm,
these things. So don't kick yourself. Just know criminals are really, really good at this stuff. I mean, this is all they do every day. And I mean, I'm really impressed sometimes with the things they come up with. But that's the problem, is they are really good. And just know, if it happens, it's not horrific. Just, solve the problem. Don't beat yourself up about it.
Okay. All right. So obviously we've covered emails. We will come back to the password thing because you just said something and touched on it about, a lot of people use the same passwords for different websites and everything. And, it's something that everybody is told. Change your passwords every 90 days. Make sure you have different ones. Don't use the same. I mean, we're all told this,
Yeah.
but we're human and we're lazy. So, we we tend to do those things that we're not supposed to do. But we'll come back to that in a minute because I know you've got some techniques and things, ideas about how to help you with, I don't know what you want to call it, but the password conundrum, right? Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
But in between time, what about malicious text messages? How do those work? Because it's not an email, it's just a link on your phone. So,
Correct. Yeah. And that's whoa, it just went all blurry. That was weird. And so at least I hope that was on the computer and not my eyes.
it was.
So I'm having a stroke. So yeah, basically text messaging is becoming big booming business. It's nowhere near phishing yet on emails, but it's taken off. And it's because there's so many different ways criminals can use this. Oftentimes they'll send it on behalf, for example, of a credit union. You'll get a text message and they'll say, hey, we've detected suspicious activity in your account, or this is XYZ Credit Union, and we noticed a recent purchase for $250. Was this you? And then it's got a thing for yes or no. And of course, the person gets this and they go, well, no. Now, oftentimes people go, wait a minute. It came from my credit union, though. It said my credit union's name. How would they know that? It has to be my credit union. And the reality is, credit unions are generally based in certain regions, and criminals know this. So they get phone number lists for a region, look at the credit unions in that area, and start sending text messages pretending to be from that credit union. It's just a shotgun approach. They realize some people are going to get it, not belong to that credit union, and they don't care. The ones that do get it that belong to that credit union, that's the ones they're trying to trick. And so you get something like that, and you go, well, no, I didn't make that purchase. So you type in no, hit respond, and then immediately responds back. It says, thank you for letting us know. Somebody from our support division or from our fraud division will be contacting you shortly. And you go, okay, great. Well, next thing you know, you get a phone call that oftentimes will actually come from the phone number of that credit union. It'll look just like it's their phone number because they'll spoof that. And you answer it, and already you're so bought into it's them that whatever they talk to you about, people just start giving up information. And so they'll ask for things like your social security number. Sometimes they'll ask for your login name. Sometimes they'll do this thing where they say, okay, hey, they'll somehow trick people into getting their passwords, or maybe they'll even get their password off the dark web or another way. And they'll say, okay, what we need to do right now is we're going to send you a verification code to make sure you are who you say you are. And in reality, all they're doing is going to the digital banking site, typing in the login, typing in the password, and then when they hit go, it sends the user, the member, that verification code. And their goal is to get that member to read it to them over the phone so they can complete multi-factor and get logged into their account. And they have huge success with these types of things. Messaging in general has become big business. If you haven't seen, if you've got HBO, there's a really, really good episode on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, where he talks on a subject called pig slaughtering. You can also find it on YouTube that he does. It's a little dicey in his wording. You got to be willing to hear a few uncomfortable words, but he does the absolute best job of explaining this other scam going on with text messages right now, far better than I could ever do. It's about 20 minutes, and it's the most eye-opening thing you'll see on how you're getting scammed. So if you have a moment and you want to learn more about that, it's really, really eye-opening.
Very good. I actually watch him all the time, so I can do that, no problem. Actually, since you bring it up, though, I mean, the credit union does send out text messaging, right? So I want to make sure that, our members that are on this as well tonight know that there are going to be legit text messages that do come from the Credit Union of Denver. It's going to be, your payment is late, or, hey, your payment's due pretty soon, or it could be something that comes from our fraud detection unit from our credit card company that we work with, right? So my advice, and I'd like to know if you agree with this, because it should be your advice, not mine, is that when in doubt, hang up, don't click, don't text back, don't do anything, and call the number that is your credit union.
That's all it is. I mean, when in doubt, take out your debit card. Look on that. It'll have a number.
Exactly. Credit card, debit card, all of that. Yep, they have numbers, and they will ask you clarifying questions, but they will never ask you your social security number. And neither will we.
And you're never going to ask them their password. You'll never say, what's your online banking password? What's your online banking login? Those are things that they'll never ask, but every criminal will ask that. And criminals will always say like, oh, well, we normally don't need to ask this, but because another criminal, or really, the other criminal, they got in your account, they messed with your stuff. So we need to put it back the way it was. Otherwise, we can't reactivate your account. So we need you to tell us what the login was. And people go, oh, okay, that makes sense. So they explain why they need this stuff. Don't buy it.
Okay. No, I like that. It definitely is something where you just need to go from an independent source and just verify that way. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Don't buy it. Hang up and call who you know. Absolutely.
Yeah. And no credit union employee is going to say, well, if you hang up, then you're not going to be able to have access to your account. Because that's the thing. They'll try to not let you hang up. A credit union employee is going to say, sure, if you need to validate it, go ahead and call us back, whatever number you're comfortable with. Like, they're going to work with you, not against you. They're not going to threaten you. That's for sure.
Exactly. No, and absolutely. We want people to feel safe. We want them to know that they can do that for sure. So obviously those are, text messages. It's something that is utilized and so forth. Another thing though is, with the unexpected things that you might see with cyber criminals, like with current technology, what can you talk about with Chat GPT? You talk about AI and how it's, making it all look absolutely real. And I guess, I want to know more about what you think, but I guess it would go back to the same thing, which is when in doubt, hang up, don't look at it, don't click, and check it out. But
Sure. ChatGPT is interesting because it's opening up so many new avenues for criminals. ChatGPT has like a set of like primary directives, if you will. Well, it's not supposed to do anything bad or illegal or things like that. But there's what are known as DAN prompts, DAN prompts. DAN prompts allow people to override the security protocols in ChatGPT, making it say and do whatever they want. So you can get it to teach you all sorts of illegal stuff. It'll write malicious code for you. I've gone in and had it write malware for me. It'll write the entire thing. I've had it write ransomware for me. You can override their protocols. And that's what criminals are doing. And so it makes it really simple. Another thing that they're doing is they use it. Let's say that I'm in Russia. I don't speak English, but I want to write a phishing email that looks real. They can take a phishing email and write it all in Russian, push it through ChatGPT, and it'll put it back out to perfect English. And I mean perfect English that then they can send on to people. So it's making hacking easier on just about every level. And don't get me wrong, ChatGPT is amazing. If you haven't ever used ChatGPT, which is openai.com, I think, it is. It's changed my life. There's not a business day that goes by that I don't use ChatGPT for something because it has so many ways to help you with information and data and reviewing things, and it's amazing. But what can be used for good can oftentimes be used for evil, and we're seeing it constantly with these types of things. And it's not just ChatGPT; it's anything with AI. We're seeing now AI being utilized for all sorts of malware and all sorts of different ways to bypass security and do other things because it's very intelligent and it can simulate human beings at a crazy level.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to go back to two things here. One, with emails, right? So a lot of times you'll get those phishing emails or scamming emails, and it'll be unsubscribe, right? You'll have the button that says unsubscribe. So is that something that you would do, or no, just ignore it?
Ignore it. Never click on that. That's clicking a link. And so many times criminals bury malware in the unsubscribe button. When you click the link, instead of taking you to a legitimate site, it takes you to a malicious site where it attacks your browser or something else. And what people don't realize, just so I'm clear on when I say don't click a link, the reason I'm saying that is there's vulnerabilities in software. And a perfect example would be Google Chrome. A lot of people use Google Chrome. It's the #1 browser in the world. If you're using Google Chrome, there's been, I don't remember this year, I don't want to exaggerate. I think it's been 6 or 7, maybe not this year, last year, it was like 6 or 7, maybe more, of 0-day vulnerabilities. And what that means, there's a vulnerability in the browser actively being attacked by criminals on the internet, and there is no patch available. Meaning if you just happen to click that link and go to that site, malware would be installed on your computer. You wouldn't know what was happening, and there's nothing you can do to prevent it. Even if you had something like antivirus, your computer would still be compromised. And so that's why clicking links is so dangerous. So when you receive an email and it's malicious, clicking the unsubscribe button, you're doing one of two things. You're either installing malware, going to a malicious site, that type of thing, or else what you're doing is you're clicking it, telling whoever sent it, hey, this is a legitimate email address. They just clicked, and you're confirming that email is real. Just click in Microsoft, which most people are using. You can click the little button that says hide or block or something like that. That's part of Microsoft's tool, or any of the tools have it.
Block sender.
Exactly. Do it that way. Don't click unsubscribe.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. So speaking of Chrome, right? That's a Google owned browser, yes?
Correct.
Okay. So Google stores passwords. How do you
Yes.
feel about that?
So oddly enough, I'm not against it. And you'd think, being the paranoid lunatic that I am, I would be. I am against it for secure sites, especially secure sites where you don't have multi-factor. So what I mean by that is, let's say I'm going to petlovers.com, where we're on like a little site where we can all take pictures of our pets and post them on the site. I don't care if somebody hacks that account, could care less. I can store that password in Google and never give it another thought. And it'll just be there every time I log in. I just hit the little remember me thing. It puts my password in automatically and I'm good to go. Now, let's say that I'm going to my banking site. Now, in that case, when I go to log in, I have to enter a login, I have to enter a password, and then I have to do some sort of multi-factor challenge. Because I'm going to have that multi-factor challenge, which is an additional challenge where they send me a link to my text message or
Right.
to email or something like that.
Yep.
I go like, even if a criminal was able to hack my browser to where they captured that password, my risk is still relatively low. Now, it's a case by case basis. I'm not using it for, in fact, I'm not using it for my banking, but I'm not completely against it if you did. It's just, know your risks. If you have multi-factor, you've set it up properly, and you feel you're pretty wise in what you're doing, you can use it for the most part and be okay. If there's not multi-factor involved, and if it's any kind of legitimate site where you care about that data, you would never store it in there. That would be a huge risk.
Right. Absolutely. No, I agree with that 100%. Apologize. Hold on one second for me. I just lost my window. There we go. Okay. So let me ask you this then. When it comes to the different types of devices, right? So, we're talking about being online, right? So a lot of people have said that Apple products are safer than, other products and so
Sure.
forth. So is there any truth to that? Are Apple products safer than going with like an Android type product or a Samsung Galaxy tablet or a whatever?
So, yeah, yes. So Apple is safer, and so I guess the better way to put it, everything has vulnerabilities. So if I was going to put like some sort of, that like that chart they have from like monkey to man, and it's got several different like apes in a row, and they each progress up. I kind of look at that
Yeah.
like with technology as well, like where you go, okay, on the monkey side, that's like the most vulnerable. You're probably going to put a Windows system. Like that's just that's your most vulnerable system. Then if you go like the next level up, oddly enough, would probably be a, so you go, oh, well, wait a minute, that's still pretty far down because you still got other things out there. So but it's maybe walking upright a little bit. Then the next one you're going to move into is your all of your mobile devices, and so you could say probably anything that's Android would probably come next. So if it's whether it's an Android tablet or an Android phone, that would probably be your next one. After that, you'd probably say Apple. And I know there's people that would be arguing with me going, wait a minute, Apple's got vulnerabilities too. And I do agree that they do, but Android lets you do side loading. Android lets you do a lot of things where there's a lot more vulnerabilities and a lot more risks. And it's easier to push apps up to Android than it is to Apple. So therefore, Android has more risk. Apple's next. And then at the very tippity top, which is crazy enough, would be a Chromebook. Android or Google's Chromebooks, not Google Chrome, but they're Chromebooks. They're walking
Right.
upright. They're man. And the reason that they do so well is they've just done a really good job of setting up their sandbox for the security on it. There's a reason why every high school on the planet gives their kids at those high schools Google,
Chromebooks. Yeah.
and it's because kids are idiots. They're bound to get malware. They're bound to get stuff. And these devices hold
Right.
up over and over again very, very well. So
Yes.
that's kind of your list. And I didn't throw Linux in there because I think that's starting to get into other areas. So, someone's right now going, what about Linux? Linux can fall anywhere in depending on how you've done your security on it. It could go at the very worst. It could go to the very best. It's up to the actual person in that case and how knowledgeable they are.
Right. Okay.
So,
So
but if you had
that
a
brings me.
choice, oh, sorry, but
Mhm.
if you have a choice, let's say like my parents are older. They're online. They kept getting viruses. They kept getting malware stuff on their computer. I finally gave up, went over to their house one day. I gave them a Chromebook. I took away their PC, and they're awesome. They can do everything they ever wanted to do. It's not like they're doing code development or something where they need a PC. A Chromebook works fine for all of their, Excel sheets and PowerPoint and browsing and all the things they want to do in email. It works fantastic. So something like that works great. If you have a business, let's say you have a small business where you're receiving a lot of emails, don't have the employee that's reading all those emails using a PC or a Mac. Have them using either a tablet or a Chromebook. You're far less likely to get malware on those types of things from the emails that are coming in.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So with that said, two things. One, if you were to add a good antivirus on your, should you be, not just relying on, say, the Apple product itself or whatever, right? Or, in this case, Chromebook would be the best, right? So then Apple, but should you be adding antivirus or anti-malware security on your phones and or other devices? Is that something that would protect you from those types of things?
Yeah, so just just to keep everybody on the same, full disclosure, I'm a spokesperson for Norton LifeLock. They and I go out and do their infomercials and things. So clearly I'm going to be a little bit biased. That said, I think antivirus, specifically not getting into anti-malware, but antivirus, because they are different, is one of those things that I can't imagine not having it. No matter which product you select, you have to have it. And it's probably similar to having a lock on your car door. Like, yeah,
Okay.
someone could walk up, take a hammer and smash the window. But generally, if you just lock the car, for the most part, you're good. Or the lock on your home. Same thing, they could smash a window. I think it's needed. I think it gets rid of a lot of the low-hanging fruit. It by no means can stop everything. It's an impossibility that it could. I think if you bring on antivirus with anti-malware, something like malware or malbyte, something like that, those two combined do a really good job. Again, they still don't stop everything, but it's just those extra layers to try to slow the criminals down.
Right. And that's why we're having this discussion tonight, is so that, yeah, it'll slow it down, but then you know what to kind of look for and then what steps to take to kind of protect yourself and not fall victim for that, or try not to. How's that? Yeah. Okay. And then one last piece that kind of goes to that, which is antivirus, anti-malware, which devices, whatever, but then accessing through a VPN. And then there's like personal VPNs, and there's apps that are out there for that. Are those suspicious? Do app stores have bad actors in them as well?
Absolutely. So that's a lot to unpack. So I'll answer that in
Sorry.
two parts. No, it's okay. Because it's excellent. It's an excellent question. So personal VPNs, just so people understand what those are, there's VPNs that, like, your business that you might have, that you work at a company and they say, hey, we're going to set up a VPN. So when you work from home, you're connected to our network. And that's a corporate VPN. That is very different from a personal VPN. And corporate VPNs are going to be set up by your corporation, and that's fine. It's completely outside of the kind of scope of this. A personal VPN is relatively new. They became popular probably over the last 4 or 5 years, and that is software, some sort of technology that's either put on your phone, your laptop, something like that, or your computer. And basically what it does is it says, okay, whenever you're using your computer or mobile device, whatever, and you're browsing or in any way on the internet, it's going to encrypt the connection from your device past whatever local network you're on, and then out onto the internet, where then it'll decrypt it somewhere out there. And the reason for this is, let's say that you go to a Starbucks and some idiot like me is at that Starbucks, and I decided to set up a scanner and a sniffer on the network, and I'm monitoring everything that's happening on that network. Well,
What's a sniffer?
A sniffer allows you to monitor traffic on the network at the traffic level. So you're browsing to a website, I can then try to watch where you're browsing. And there's a lot more technology behind it. We're not going to be able to get into all of that.
Okay.
But the main concept is, if I'm able to see traffic on that network, you don't want me to see your traffic. If you have a personal VPN, then all I'm going to see, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, is one connection and only one connection that's going from your device out to somewhere on the internet. And it's this encrypted mess. And there's nothing I can do with it whatsoever. And so that's what a personal VPN is good for, is protecting you on whatever network you are locally. So if you're in a hotel, if you're at an airport, if you're at a Starbucks, wherever, things like that, or if you're in an apartment complex where you think you're on your Wi-Fi, but your neighbor has gone and put up another Wi-Fi device that looks like yours, so you're actually connecting to theirs, and they're monitoring everything you're doing. A personal VPN can protect you from all types of things like that. To your second question, absolutely, there's malicious personal VPNs on these different sites. And what ends up happening is people create, anybody can make an app, and they can make an app look somewhat legitimate. And they can even pass the scrutiny of Apple or Google to come live. Because let's say that I make a personal VPN app, and that app says, hey, I'm going to encrypt all of your traffic from your point to somewhere else on the internet. So, and it does exactly that. But what you don't know is when it gets to another point on the other side of the internet, on that network where they've set up to decrypt it, they're going to monitor you right there. So even though the app is quote unquote legitimate and there's no reason for Apple to ban it, the person who created it is not legitimate and they're bad. So what you want to make sure is whenever you're going to install one of these apps on a mobile device, do your research in the background on the company or the organization, whoever made that app, and make sure it's a legitimate app. Obviously, if it comes from one of the big companies, like every major antivirus company offers an app now, just getting it through one of those, you're probably fine. If you're getting it from somebody named Bob that you have no idea who he is and he just made this app,
right,
you're taking your risk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe take another look at that. Absolutely. I think that's a good plan. Well, I think that you touched on also another piece which I had on our list, which was, a lot of people, if they're traveling, they're in an airport, whatever, they log into a guest Wi-Fi or a public Wi-Fi. Basically, it's not safe. Is that
correct?
Is that a safe thing to say?
That is a very safe thing to say. Yes. Public Wi-Fi in general has inherent risk, and it's because you have no idea who's actually set it up. You can go to YouTube and watch. I did one down in Cancun where they had me setting up Wi-Fi device at a hotel pool, and basically everybody's phones were connecting to my device, and I was, able to monitor them. I was able to pull information off their phones and just show it in real time of what we were getting. And so, yeah, that's why these personal VPNs make a difference, because they would protect you from those types of things. So just know any Wi-Fi device that's out in public can be malicious, and it'd be almost impossible for you to know whether it's legitimate or not.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Something else that's become real popular. It kind of was popular and then it died down. And then in the pandemic, QR codes became real popular, especially at restaurants, right?
Yeah.
So the credit union, in marketing, thank you, we use QR codes, and we do it to create a shortcut to information that's going to link to probably our website. Right? So it's just going to be information. It doesn't do anything. It just does that. But there are some bad ones out there. And I know there are people that are concerned with QR codes. So what can you shed a light on that for us?
Yeah. So QR codes are fantastic. They save a ton of time. I use QR codes in my companies. We do marketing the same thing with QR codes, and that's completely normal. And the QR codes is not the problem itself. And where it comes down to is, what is that QR code supposed to do? So, for example, when restaurants were doing that in place of menus, I went to restaurants and I just replaced the little QR code on the table with my own QR code. And I was using it to steal passwords. And you go, well, how would that work? And it was because we were making people, when they scan the QR code, we would bring them to the quote unquote restaurant, but it wasn't really the restaurant. And it would basically tell them that they needed to set up an account in order to place their order. And people would do it. And what we were caring about was just to see what passwords they put in. And before you think, oh my God, this guy is a terrible person, was it Today's Show? I don't know. You can go to YouTube. You can watch it. It was one of the networks asked me to do it with one of their people. So we were doing it for
Right.
educational purposes. I'm not a bad person, I promise. But it was easy to do. More importantly, where I mean, it's incredibly um, easy to do was parking lots. Most paid parking lots are moving away from where you enter a credit card at a machine or put money into you stuff money in the old days, you'd stuff bills into like a
Yeah,
slot.
absolutely. Yeah.
All of those get vandalized, they all get smashed up, and people get tired of paying all that money. So what they do now is they put up a big sign and it says, scan this QR code to pay for your
Yep.
spot. So you walk up, you
Yep.
scan the QR code, it comes up to a website that talks about, entering your space number, entering your credit card information. Well, you have no way of knowing what that site should look like. You've never been to that parking lot before. It could be anything.
Exactly.
So I went there, I printed stickers of QR codes that I just stuck over their QR
Oh
code.
my
So when you would walk up, you'd scan it, you'd go to my site where I would collect your credit card information. And it was, 2 minutes of work. It was the easiest one ever. And for that particular one, again, you can watch it on the same segment. So again, I'm not a bad person, I promise. Wow, that was loud. So yeah, so for that one, it was so easy to set up that while we were filming that day, you film for quite some time, we would get
Sure.
distracted. People would walk up because they parked in the parking lot and they would walk over to our particular sign and start to scan it because they were getting ready to pay. And we were like, whoa, 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 use that sign over there. You can't use this one because they just
Right.
didn't care. It just seemed totally normal to them. And it was
Right.
5 minutes of work.
Did they argue with you?
No, they once they saw the camera crew, they kind of figured out what was going on. But it was
Okay.
just funny how fast it could happen that people were just, and you think about like a popular parking lot, you go to like downtown anywhere, those lots just
Sure.
piling cars. You put up one of those stickers just for a
Absolutely.
couple hours, you've ripped a whole bunch of credit cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a little scary for sure. So, but
Oh,
what's the
by the
way
way,
around that?
yeah, the tip on that one, for restaurants, if you ever scan a QR code and they want you to enter anything at all, other than just giving you the menu, just ask whoever the server is and just say, hey, this thing's telling me it wants this. Is this legit? And they're either going to go, what is that? Or they're going to go, yeah, that is. So that's easy at restaurants. If you're at the parking lots, walk up to the sign and just see if you can peel a sticker off the sign. If the QR code peels off the sign, that's not a good sign.
Maybe,
So
maybe not. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you want to move on. And that's in general, if you scan a QR code and it wants personal information, private information, confidential information, anything like that, stop. That's where you start getting suspicious. If you scan a QR code and it's from, a legitimate mailer from your organization that you do with the credit union or anything like that, you're in good shape. You're going to be just fine.
Very good. Okay, we have one big topic that I wanted to make sure that we could ask for everybody because I don't know about everybody else, but I've heard of the dark web. I I see it as being Darth Vader and the evil one and don't go there. Oh my gosh, right? Put up your fingers with a cross sign type of thing. Anyway, but dark web,
Yeah.
it's where what criminals go to play. What is the dark web?
Oh,
What's the scoop?
the dark web is awesome. So if you've never been to the dark web, it is a
No.
100% legal. It is, you
Okay.
can pick up what's known as a Tor, Tor web browser, because you can't use a regular web browser. Like people go, oh, I accidentally ended up on the dark web the other day. You don't accidentally end up on the dark web. You have to install a very specific browser to get on the dark web.
Okay.
Once you're on the dark web, there's legitimate sites. Facebook has a site. Oh, who is it? The New York Times has a site. The CIA has a site. Lots of legitimate organizations have sites on the dark web. The whole purpose of the dark web is to allow people to remain anonymous. So if
Okay.
I'm in a country that has a very repressive or oppressive regime that might kill me if I post something out that I don't want people to know I posted, or that I'm reading stuff that I don't want the government to do, the dark web allows me
Uh-huh.
to do that because there's no
Okay.
tie back to me. The problem with the dark web is criminals realize, well, hey, if we're all anonymous, we can do anything here and no one can trace it back to us. So you can literally set up websites that no one knows where it really is, that sell bad things. And then bad people can go to those sites to buy those things. So literally you have websites that look just like Amazon now that are on the dark web. And you go to this website and you pick, hey, I'm in the mood to buy drugs. You go to a site that's just dedicated to drugs and you scroll through, and they have marketplaces where individual sellers have set up shop where you can go and buy whatever drug you want. Well, the same thing happens with cyber criminals. So they're now selling information. So I'm a hacker and I go to a malicious website, or I go to a website and I hack that site and I download, I don't know, 100,000 records of people's names, addresses, social security numbers. Well, I'm a hacker. I don't know what to do with that. I'm not an identity thief, but I can go on the dark web, throw that whole thing up for sale in one big block, say I'm selling it for 50 grand. Someone will come along, they'll pay me 50 grand to buy that. They in turn will then take and break it down smaller and say, I'm going to sell these in blocks of 5,000 and I'll make a few bucks more on each one. And they sell it smaller, smaller till the identity theft finally thief comes in and they go, I'll buy 5 records. And now they buy 5 records that they go out and then use to become those people. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows who the seller is. Everybody's anonymous. And that's why the dark web has become so synonymous with criminals. It's just because everybody's anonymous there.
Okay. So what's the difference between anonymous, a TOR browser, and incognito?
So incognito is basically where it makes you hide some information about you. And like it won't store cookies that they can pull back. It doesn't have fingerprinting, that type of thing. Incognito cannot hide your IP address. Wherever you're coming from, that's where you're coming from. And so the receiving server will know that. And so therefore they can trace it back. If you're in incognito mode and you go out and do something horrific, the police are going to come knocking on your door. If you're in the dark web and you do something horrific, oh, you're just a bad person.
Right. Right. No, I hear that. Okay. Well, I appreciate that because that was sort of a kind of the big ugly topic that I wanted to make sure I put out there because, you know, it's not something that everybody has access to about understanding the dark web. So
yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people wonder like, okay, well, if my information ends up on the dark web, how do I get it off? And you don't. It's once your information is on the dark web, there is no undo button. It's out there for good, and just monitor your credit.
Same as the internet.
Yeah.
Same as the internet.
Yeah, you have a better chance of getting it off the internet than you do off the dark web. That's for sure.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I wanted to talk about passwords. Okay, because I know that this is kind of a big one for everybody because it's something that concerns everybody. So I think you have a pretty cool trick about remembering passwords. Can you share that with us?
It sounds dopey, but it works, I swear. So first, before I share it, in general, if you have any website that you go to where you have confidential, private, personal types of data, things that are important to you, make sure you turn on multi-factor. Or sometimes they call it 2-factor. It is so incredibly important nowadays. And people go, oh, it's an inconvenience. I promise you, it's worth the extra 10 seconds it takes to log in. Almost every major website on the planet now supports some sort of multi-factor. Just turn it on. It reduces your risk greatly in case you do make a mistake with a password or happen to use it at more than one site. Now, as far as the password itself goes, if you have, generally the idea is you should never use the same password at more than one website. But the average person has like 70 websites now with logins. So how are you going to remember 70 different passwords without writing them down or storing them somewhere, something like that? So what you can do is come up with a password that's 6 characters, just 6 characters, and it's crazy. It's got an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, some sort of wacky extra character like an exclamation point or an at symbol, something like that, and lock those 6 characters into your head. So now that is your core. You'll never forget that. You've got that forever. Then every website you go to and you're going to set up a password, look at the domain name. So, google.com, yahoo.com, whatever that is, .com, look at that name and then incorporate part of that name into your password. So a really simple example would be, okay, I'm going to enter the first 6 characters, and then the website I've gone to is Google. So then I'm going to end it with GO, because GO is the beginning of Google. Now, every website I go to, I will always enter in my 6 characters, and then I'll look at the domain name and I'll enter the first 2 characters as my last 2 of my password. So if I went to Yahoo, I would type YA. If I went to Stickley on Security, I would type ST. Those would be my last things. So no matter where you go, your password is always different. And yet, everywhere you go, you can always remember it, because all you got to do is look at the domain name and remember what your algorithm is. Now, you can get way more creative. You could say, hey, every site I go to, I'm going to use the first and last letter, and I'm going to put them at the beginning and the end of my password. So my password will be in the middle of those, or, mix them up or whatever. But the point being, whatever you lock in as your plan, you just stick with that plan. You'll always have a unique password, yet you can always remember it, because all you got to do is just look at the domain and remember your key 6 that you had from the very beginning. So it sounds silly, but it really does work.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I remember you telling us that, and I was like, oh, that's so clever. It's good. Okay, so what about like password keepers?
Sure. I'm not against them. They do have risk. The ones that are cloud-based, meaning they store all of your passwords somewhere in the cloud, I'm not a fan of those at all. There's been numerous that have been hacked. If you're going to get one, find a legitimate app, make sure it's a legitimate company behind it, have it on your phone, make sure it only stores on your phone, and then make sure you have a password on both that and some sort of a password or biometrics on your phone to get into it. With those things combined, it's pretty darn foolproof. You'll have a really good way to store them, feel secure about it, and not be at risk that someone's going to be able to gain access to them.
Okay, awesome. We did have a question come in that I wanted to ask you about, and it was something about a 2017 Equifax breach that happened, and that the information was out on the dark web. Do you think that it's always been on the dark web?
I mean, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, most of the time when you have a breach, the information ends up on the dark web. That's just kind of common knowledge. And once it's on there, what your hope is that they end up selling it versus giving it away. And more recently, it's being given away, because what happens is ransomware gangs hack into a corporation, they download all the data, and they threaten the corporation and say, either pay us this ransom, or we're going to release all of your customers' information onto the dark web. And when they don't pay the ransom, they just dump the entire thing for free for anybody to have access to. And that is the average person's worst nightmare, because if criminals have to pay for it, a lot of times it'll sit out there forever and only one person may ever get it, and they may never use it. When it's just shoved up for free and everybody has access, you're cooked.
Excellent. Is there any other, because we're coming up on the hour, and I know that I told everybody that we would be here for an hour, but obviously there is so much to unpack on this topic that we could probably talk for more than an hour. But that being said, is there anything that I didn't bring up that you think would be, something important enough that we need to address?
I mean, you can go down anywhere.
Like the latest something.
Yeah, I guess what I don't really know there's specific there. What I would tell people is, nobody thinks that they'll become a victim of either a scammer or identity thief or get malware on their computer. People just don't think it's going to happen. And my best advice is, when you have some sort of sixth sense in your head that tells you something's off, whether it's something's weird with your computer, starting acting weird, whether it's a person on the phone, that something seems strange, whether it's that email you receive, trust your gut. So many people I've worked with through the years that have been victims of everything from malware on their computers to scams to everything else say to me, when this happened, I thought it was weird, but, and then it continues on how they talk themselves out of it. Don't talk yourselves out of it. Like, if something seems off, go with your gut every time. Hang up the phone, delete the email, have your computer checked, whatever it is, go with your gut, because 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be right. That's the best advice I think I can give.
Yeah, that, and then make sure that if you have that gut feeling, if you are concerned about it, go to the source from an independent means,
Yep.
not from however somebody tried to contact you or tried to get to you, but
Yeah.
go independently. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
don't just trust if the phone number looks like the phone number you would expect that they were calling you, because I can call you tomorrow and make it look like it's coming from the credit union's phone number. That is very easy. It's
Yeah.
called spoofing. It's
Yeah.
easy to do. Don't just assume
Yeah.
because
That's
you
happened to
recognize the
us.
phone number. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's happened to us. And just for everybody that's on this webinar, just so you guys know, when we hear about any kind of compromise or somebody that's spoofing us, that kind of thing, compromise is probably the wrong word, but
Yeah.
spoofing our phone number, because it's fairly easy from what I'm understanding. It happens to a lot of companies.
Everyone.
And so we will always put alerts, because our website, we are able to put information on our website from a secure, encrypted in the background, and that we can put alerts on our website that will say, hey, this is happening, and we will let you know if something is going on. So definitely check your emails, check the website. Those are the two main areas that we communicate with our members to make sure that they know if there's something going on. So yeah, that would
So
be
smart.
great.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
when those
Jim.
numbers are wrong, I mean, just so you guys understand, like the credit union, like when you get a phishing email and it pretends to be from the credit union wasn't hacked. Or when you get a call from somebody that spoofed their number, credit,
Right.
this is completely separate from the credit union. You could do this from anywhere in the world. So don't just go, oh,
Right.
my credit union was hacked. That's not what that means. It just means criminals are constantly pretending to be financial institutions. It's what they do. The credit unions fight back. They're constantly trying to get those sites taken down, trying to get them stopped. Behind the scenes, they spend a ton of money trying to stop these criminals from doing this stuff. But it's whack-a-mole. You whack one down, another one pops up somewhere else, and they'll just do that till the end of time.
Right, absolutely. Well, listen, Jim, thank you so much for your time, and for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. We will be hosting Jim again for a fabulous another session, probably this fall, and we're going to do it probably at lunchtime so that people can join during their lunch hour. So, but that being said, you have fabulous words of wisdom, and as always, you're entertaining, but I love how you can just make it easy to understand, and really appreciate all your time and your information. So thank you, Jim.
You bet. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I hope you got a lot out of it. And please let us know how you love it. Send us a Google review, and we appreciate it. Y'all have a good night. Stay safe out there. Bye.